my LinkedIn and all these other accounts. I was like, what the heck is going on? Like a picture of, like, instead of having my picture, they took all my resume stuff, made a brand new account, and it's like a girl posing instead of me. I was like, what the heck?
Shaykh.
I'm just saying.
How did this happen?
It's happened on LinkedIn. I have like my issues on my Facebook. I'm about to just uninstall my Facebook, bro.
You gave up your creds, didn't you? You took a cybersecurity class.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with that, bro. I think...
No, you gave up your password, yeah, Shaykh.
I never give up my password.
No. You clicked on a link and you gave up your password.
You think so?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Let's get this party rolling. Bismillah.
I want their leader brought here. I want him brought to me. I want the revolution crushed.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Mad Mamluks. My name is Sim. Along with me is my co-host, trusty co-host Shaykh Amr.
Assalamu alaikum.
And on the flip side, there's Mort. Ahlan wa sahlan ya Morty.
Yeah, Murti.
Yeah, Morty.
Moriarty. So,
yeah.
what's going on?
Shaykh, you were just telling us about how you got hacked.
Yeah, so at first I thought it was like my account got hacked because it's really weird because I clicked on my account. My name. I just happened to open up my LinkedIn thing.
Yeah.
I was like, my name. I never see it like this, but it's exactly my name. So I clicked it, and then it had all my creds, everything, my resume, basically completely entered properly, very nicely, which I didn't do it like that intentionally.
Yeah.
But instead of having my picture, I had a picture of like a girl.
Wow.
Right. And then like my Facebook.
But they didn't even change your name.
No.
They just took
same exact everything from my resume, everything.
I think they just
probably Mossad.
Probably Mossad.
Probably.
How do they not know that Amr's a boy's name?
I know. That's sort of weird. Like that's like
same workplace.
So what happens oftentimes is these guys, they have scripts. Okay, so when they hack your account, they try out like everyone's password that has given up their password. Right? You likely clicked on some link that was connecting your social media accounts, and you thought you were resetting your password, but you gave up.
But I still have my original account though. They just create another one.
No, I know. But
okay.
but they can't just change your account profile picture without you actually logging in, right? So what they do is
they create another account exactly of my name, but it's not my account.
Oh, it's not your account.
It's not my account.
Oh, it's a clone.
It's a clone.
Yeah.
At first, I thought it was mine.
Oh,
but they're doing that with other stuff
Amr's
too.
not dumb enough to have a password 1 2 3 4 5.
Well, no, it doesn't mean
actually.
No, look. So your account doesn't necessarily have to get hacked by like a simple password.
Yeah, I know. It could
have been like a link, prompt. A password reset link that came up. So a lot of times people think, oh, Chase Bank or BMO Harris is telling me to reset my password. I'm compromised, and they'll like re-enter their. Actually, it says like put in your old password and put in your old new password, and that's all. And it looks. Oh, you see that?
No, poor Shaykh.
No, because I actually forget my passwords all the time, so I have to forget password thing.
Yeah. No, always go directly to the website.
Yeah.
So this is my field, cybersecurity, for anyone who doesn't know.
And just make sure you use.
I can see y'all guys just fine now.
Okay, I think we're back.
All right, I can see you guys just fine.
Yeah, so we were just talking about some cybersecurity problems Shaykh had, but he didn't actually have cybersecurity. There's impersonation. So for anyone, Mahin also had someone impersonating as him, former Mad Mamluks host, and people are going around acting as if where we need money. And messaging people directly and asking them for donations. Guys, we're not scam worthy, okay? We don't have that kind of brand recognition. I want to let you guys know that. Do not ever... These hackers are incredibly dumb.
Are freaking hustlers, though, bro. They'll find anything, bro.
But, like,
was anyone dumb enough to donate?
I don't know. Hopefully not.
I don't think that this is actually a scam to hustle. I think this is actually a PSYOP.
PSYOP, huh? Tell me more.
Yeah, I think. Well, the IDF has, excuse me, the the Occupation Force, has a cybersecurity unit. And they go around with their troll accounts and they do stuff like this. And they do it for minor and major celebrities. And I've talked on your show about how this crazy stuff happened to me. And you saw it in real time the last time I was with y'all in Chicago.
Yeah.
So this is more than likely just them trolling. And, it doesn't even have to be an official, Mossad, IOF, cybersecurity unit. It could also be just a random troll who doesn't like Muslims, who sides with them.
Yeah.
They have a lot of extra dirty people that just do dirty stuff for free. That's my guess.
Get a nice kick out of it.
Yeah, and it's a dirty business.
Dirty business.
Well, I saw something about these Hasbara trolls that they get paid per post, depending on, like, they have a different breakdown of how much they get compensated.
Mm-hmm.
But on average, they make about $3,000 to $4,000 a month just defending Israel online.
Wow.
Just commenting, reposting. Like a repost is worth X amount of dollars. A new comment is worth X amount of dollars. Or a response is worth more money. So they just keep, and so if you spend, basically they just tally up everything they've done, and then they submit it like a contractor would, and they get paid.
Wow.
Michael Rapinoe apparently got caught doing that.
Rappaport?
Rappaport.
Yeah, he's such a whiny piece of shit. He's always screaming and whining. And it's hilarious because he was whining and screaming against Trump, and he was a hardcore liberal supporting Biden. And then, he realizes that the Biden crew is, generally speaking, people who voted for Biden are, pro-Palestinian. So now he does a whole 180. He's like, I'm voting for Trump, blah, 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 blah. He's still a piece of crap, but I'm voting for Trump. And, he's did a whole 180. And, now he's trying to embrace his Jewishness, apparently, by having people rap a tefillin on him, in the public. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? The guy's just a moron. He's just allowed... And I remember there's one viral clip of him where he was screaming and ranting like he normally does in New York City. And, some dude just told him to shut up. And they, smashed snow on him. He's totally, shut him up. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder if perhaps a lot of these Trump haters were actually just paid trolls.
It could have been.
Makes me wonder.
So that voice you guys are listening on the podcast in particular, those of you who are on audio only, that is our one and only friend, Harrison Elif, out of Jakarta, Indonesia. Welcome to the show, Harry.
Oh, Thank you, this gentlemen. Is my first show with him.
Is it really?
Every time you were in town, Harry was in town. Mort was out of town and couldn't meet him.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the Harry.
And you know what's funny? I was almost about to cancel today.
Wow.
But here I am.
Yeah.
You're having the Harry experience.
Harry's going to be a regular on the show. You're going to be hearing him often. So those of you who are listening to the audio only show, get ready to recognize his voice. He sounds like a white dude.
He is a white dude.
White guy. Harry. That's
right, my ninjas. Y'all want diversity, equity, inclusion, and here I am.
That's it.
Yes.
He's our ticket to 1 million subs.
That's right.
Everyone loves a convert.
Finally
loves a convert.
Yeah, that's what. Remember how my plan with Baby New? Yeah. We're gonna do a conversion, like how the Yahoo do a bar mitzvah. We're gonna do a conversion for Baby Noah.
Bro?
Baby Noah.
Yahoo do a bar mitzvah. What time?
Like a coming of age. Could have been a better
time.
Celebration.
Coming of age. We're gonna do a conversion, so that way he can go, to the people and say he's a revert and talk about his story under the.
Well, he might have a different angle, like growing up white.
Yeah.
Like just that alone, growing up white.
White Muslim?
No, just not even Muslim. Just say growing up white.
What if he gets older and his skin gets darker and darker, and by the time he's like
doesn't
20,
matter. He's still white. No, it doesn't matter.
Well, who gonna believe him?
Doesn't matter if they believe him or not. He's a white person. It doesn't matter.
I don't know, man. Lately, I've been mistaken for being Arab because of how tan I've gotten over here.
You definitely got the beard.
You think that's?
I definitely got the beard.
You got that Palestinian beard.
So adorable. You think that's?
I do. I do. I have that psychotic stare, like get away from my goats too. That sort of thing. I've had so many people who are Arab here, and because it's a lot of Arabs and Turks that live here in Jakarta or all over Indonesia. Really, Yemenis have been coming here for centuries.
Yeah,
and I routinely have people coming up here and saying, "Hey, Palek," and I'm like, I'm white. I'm not Arab. Dude,
sorry to disappoint. I'm just a plain white guy.
No hablo
I'm
Arabic.
just a boring white dude. No hablo Espanol.
You know what though? I mean, if that's tan for you, man, like that's pretty crazy.
That's pretty white, bro.
I don't think even the bottom of my feet are that white.
Well, it's because of this ring light. If I change the settings, you see it. Plus, look, see, here, it's like it is whiteness versus really whiteness.
Like, look at the palm of my hand.
Well, actually, it's your face is red and your arm. Wow, that's really white. Mashallah, tabarak.
Yeah, it's very white. It's very white. I'm like a glow stick if I took my shirt off. I don't want to get the sisters too excited.
Yeah, it reminds you of the fluorescent light bulbs. Fluorescent light bulbs.
Have you ever watched that movie in the '90s called Casper?
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yes.
Wasn't that about like no,
Christina
Ricci. No, not Casper.
Oh no,
Powder.
Yeah.
It was about the guy that could get electricity and whatever. Remember that? Yeah.
He got electrocuted and.
Yeah. He's like,
bro, the commercials
yeah, it was a great movie. Sure. I remember that.
I thought you were talking about the live action version of Casper the Ghost. With
No. That would have been a little too much crossing the line, but no, I meant Powder. It's a great movie. I loved it actually.
Oh, never seen it.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's pretty good.
Oh, is it like Powder? Is it sniff?
So this guy gets electrocuted out in the middle of the cornfields, and he becomes super white. So his nickname is Powder.
1995. Yeah. Jeez.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's kind of like a low-key superhero movie before.
Kind of. Yeah, his abilities and it's kind of like paranormal stuff a little bit.
All right. Okay.
Well, our listeners, you can have confidence in what Harry says. He studied political science and stuff in college. He has very thoughtful analysis on a lot of events that are happening. So, our friend is your friend.
Former Army personnel.
Army soldier.
Yeah.
Traveled across the world.
Yeah.
Got blown to bits.
Came back together.
Well, not to bits. I'd have bits inside me right now. It's more accurate description.
That's what he meant to say.
And I want to clarify, I did not finish college for a variety of reasons.
That. You're cutting your feet underneath you.
Well, it's true. But I'm glad I didn't.
We know people who can get you that degree.
Because there's a lot of people at political science degrees, and they're absolutely miserable human beings, and they're up to their eyeballs of debt. And I don't envy them. They didn't get the job they wanted either. They're working at Kmart or whatever the next thing in Kmart after Kmart was for them.
Big K.
So. Not just because you have a college degree in something doesn't mean you really have a passion for it or knowledge.
Well, most people that I know that graduated in political science don't work in anywhere near that field. So
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of when you're young and you're dreamy-eyed and you think you can get into like politics and make a difference and join some great senatorial campaigns and you think you're going to make a difference and then you realize it's a big shit pool. Yeah, no, it really is. Like, it's just really American politics. You're raised with this idea, especially they mold you in high school. You take, your founding forefathers, they wanted to rebel against all this stuff, and they were noble people, brilliant men that came up with the Constitution, all this stuff, and then you take the Constitution class, and you have to take, affirm all these values, and then you have a right, then you're 18, they're grooming you to vote, and they're like, hey, you got to go out and vote, you can make a difference, and then you learn about the Electoral College. And then you're like, this is not making sense. Well, we're not really a democracy, we're a democratic republic. And then you start, pulling together things. And then, wait, there's lobbyists and big pharma and, interest. And you're like, well, maybe my vote really doesn't matter in the long run.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's how a lot of politicians get into Washington. And they say, oh, you know what? I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to make change. Many of them come in with really good intentions. And then they realize, like, oh, this is all a scheme to make money. Not every single one. There are exceptions, and but in general, what's happened to Washington is people come in with good intentions, and they see that everyone's just filling their pockets, and I got to get mine.
So I think what ends up happening is they learn the system, they know how it is, and then what ends up happening is they play a role. Like, I think that idealism plays a role in the back offices where they're drafting policies and statements and what they wish their objective was. But then they don't get to sit in the closed door deals and where the actual deals are met. They just present what's really interesting is they use them for their ideals, and then these are great. Like they're just bargaining points when they go to negotiate. They don't really care. Like people who like maybe senators or people they pass this on to, they just see these key points as, oh, that's a great bargaining tool. That's a great way to leverage, right? And then so they use them, and these people think they're making a difference, but in reality, they're just bargaining chips for people who are making deals. That's all it is.
Did you see that recent interview with Tucker and Thomas Massie?
Oh, that was
I did not have a
awesome.
chance to.
Really good.
Thomas Massie
That was such
had
a
a
good
really
interview.
interesting. It was a really good interview. Thomas Massie had a really interesting insight into why congressmen do what they do. He said something to the extent that a lot of congressmen, they're the kind of personality that they just want to be loved. They just want everybody to like them. So Thomas Massie was saying that he goes back to talk to people in his district, and people will ask him, so Thomas, like, what is there like a bunch of kiddie porn on somebody's computer? Did his family get threatened with violence? Like, why did so-and-so vote a certain way after saying he wouldn't vote that way? And Thomas Massie says it really just comes down to people look at poll numbers, etc. And a lot of times they just want to be loved. You know?
Yeah, I'm
And
just
it,
gonna.
it makes
I'm
sense.
gonna-
Narcissism.
The
Ego.
AIPAC handler part
Fear of
Yeah,
not
I'm
being loved.
hilarious.
Fear
Yeah,
of being the outcast.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
play a clip, Harry, for the listeners who
Yep.
didn't see it. Here we go. I have too many windows open.
Yeah. By the way, there's the one with him and Glen Greenwald was really good too. The most recent one. I think it's the most recent one. They chopped it up real nicely, man.
All right, here we go.
I wish I could vote with you today. Yours is the right vote, but I would just take too much flack back home. And I have Republicans who come to me and say, that's wrong what AIPAC is doing to you. Let me talk to my AIPAC person. By the way, everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What's that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are, firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
Every member has something like this?
I don't know how it works on the Democrat side, but that's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them, and they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them. So I've had
That's absolutely crazy.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, I'll talk to my AIPAC person. And it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. I'll talk to my AIPAC guy and see if I can get him to, dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
It doesn't benefit anybody. Why would they want to tell their constituents that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that.
It's in.
You know what? We got to stop it because of the
Yeah,
the algorithm. But first one, I want to say I love this guy.
Yeah.
He every image that you have of Washington insiders, he blows that out of the water. Like, he's not someone who can be bought. There are idealists like that. These are the outliers I was just talking about earlier. That they are through and through the bone for their country. They want the betterment of their country and their people. And you can see who's in the charts right now. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Joe Rogan. All these people are genuinely against the genocide that's happening, right? And you're seeing a shift in what's happening in the American
Public
thinking and the American public, and this has them terrified.
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, he can say, AIPAC, guide or whatever, buddy system, but to me, it just sounds like a handler.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's like a handler.
Yeah, it's just like
Totally
a handler.
babysitter
Handler.
type thing.
Yeah, like someone saying, okay, well, now we're going to tell you what to say, and if you don't, well, you don't get your money, or this comes out about you, right?
That's for the rest.
And I've always said that. I said the only power that Israel has over people is the shame of being an anti-Semite, because they've shamed people into thinking that being an anti-Semite or being labeled that is a bad thing. I'm not saying it's okay to be an anti-Semite, but I'm saying if you're going to throw that label around, I'm okay you labeling me something doesn't mean it's true. Right? Like if they want to label me Islamist or radical, right? I don't care what you say. I'm a Muslim, right? So it doesn't really care what you call me. But if I'm no longer afraid of being labeled an Islamist for saying I'm gonna, I want my wife to wear hijab and I want to keep my beard and I want to pray 5 times a day, then it doesn't matter what they call me. Right now, they're afraid of being called anti-Semitic. So that's the biggest handicap that Americans face.
Right.
They're afraid of being labeled anti-Semites.
Have you seen any other country do anything like this? Like Russia obviously determines the outcome of our elections. We keep hearing that. Does anyone have a Putin guy that they talk to?
Not only do they not have a Putin guy, look, they don't have a Britain guy. They don't have an Australian guy. They don't have a Germany dude. Like, it's the only country that does this, that has somebody that, like, uniformly, I guarantee there's some spreadsheet at AIPAC where the AIPAC dude who's matched up with the congressman is there, and then all the congressman's votes on the issue. Oh, has the congressman been to Israel? They pay for trips for congressmen and their spouses to go to Israel. I'm not the only Republican who hasn't taken the AIPAC trip to Israel, but I'm probably one of a dozen that hasn't taken that trip, and the other ones just haven't got around to it.
What's the trip like? Do you know?
It's kind of like, I think, vacation-y. You go see the wall, you go see the sites,
Indoctrination.
Things like that.
I must say, it's such a great country. Jerusalem especially is just such a wonderful place that's got to have a big effect.
You go, like, swim in the Dead Sea.
Yeah,
like,
I've done that.
Yeah.
Not on an AIPAC trip, but
Right.
I would recommend it to anyone.
Are you sure it wasn't an AIPAC trip?
I paid for it myself. No, I mean, it's just funny. I mean, I am a legit lover of Israel, of the place Israel. Right. I like the people, and I love the food, and like the whole thing is so great.
Look,
but that's distinct from the government of Israel, which is just a foreign government.
My sense is the people are very entrepreneurial.
Totally.
They're publicly minded. They care about their country. That they're generally good people, right?
That's certainly been my experience in trips there, for sure. It's great. It's just I think it's probably one of my favorite, maybe my all-time favorite place to go.
Have you heard anybody say that's your
with
all-time
my
favorite
family?
place to go is Israel?
But that's just a completely different thing from taking orders from its government.
Yeah,
Because they're not registered.
Is there?
I think they have to say, add some caveats to. When you're critical of Israel, you're going to make a lot of enemies. So you have to say a lot of nice things as well.
Well, I think also there could be a religious element too, right?
Christian,
It's
but
you know,
something,
no, hold on. It could be a religious element too.
He's got a point about that, in that the reason that they have such a huge degree of influence really comes down to evangelical Christians. And this is one of the, I don't want to say beefs, but this is one of my critiques of some of the up and coming America First people, even though I would also call myself America First. I've been America First even before I became Muslim. My critique being, okay, yes, we can blame the Jews, but that only goes so far. The other half of that equation is the fact that we have all these evangelical Christians who are convinced that they have to support the Jews no matter what, to bring about this sort of insane apocalyptic end time scenario. And we don't really want to talk about that enough. We just want to say, oh, the Christians, they're just manipulated by the Zionist Jews and this, that, and the other.
Part of my
But
ignorance...
it's like, no, it's kind of like there's some interplay here.
No, I know there's
you
interplay,
can't just
but-
blame the Jews for everything.
No, part of my ignorance, but was
No
it...
other country has
was
that.
It, no, I know. Well, but was it the Zionists that actually planted that within the evangelical Christians, or was it
No.
them working on their own?
No. That comes from evangelical Christianity.
Yeah, evangelicals came up with this about 40 years before Theodore Herzl.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
the Niagara Bible Conference. Just look that up.
Okay.
You'll find that there was an idea that is called expediency theology. They believe that they could make Jesus Christ come back sooner than later if they helped all the Jews get there and fulfill their prophecy.
Yes.
But the biggest thing is, even the ones that don't necessarily want to be like hardcore Israel, theologically they believe they can't speak against Israel. They say, well, God's hand is over Israel. It doesn't matter how bad the Jews are. that's the place where Christ comes from. His hand is over there, and that's a blessed place, and no matter what happens. And they have a deep theological thing where it's like, okay, well, the children of Isaac, right, are going to be blessed no matter what. It's an everlasting covenant, and God wants to, because their whole idea is that Jesus died for them. Like, they're supposed to be this way, because that's why Jesus died.
That's crazy.
To bring them back. So they expect no less of them, to be disobedient, to be rebellious, to be, to rebel against God, but God still loves them. That's the whole story for them.
That's crazy.
It's a story of God's love for them.
If you don't mind, I'd like to just jump in here with a personal story real quick, because this is something that I deal with when I engage with a lot of my friends from Texas and the Midwest, and family members even that have this Protestant evangelical Christian belief. Since I've become Muslim, you would think that they would be really angry at me and harsh. This is something I want people to understand about Christian Zionists in America. A lot of them are actually really lovely people.
Yep.
And people are like, what? No, they're racist and they're Islamophobic. They're not pro-Islam, but they're not necessarily hateful towards Islam. Many of them. I can't speak for all of them, but many of them. What they think, I've been trying to wrap my head around it for years, because I've always been skeptical of Israel, especially after I came back from Iraq and read things like the Israel Lobby by John Mersheimer, which is a fantastic book. It's like the story of Abraham taking his son to be sacrificed. That's how they see it. It's like, well, it doesn't matter whether I agree with this. It doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. What matters is God Almighty told me to do this, so I'm just going to hear and obey. That's how they feel about it.
So
and
what
on one hand,
Muslims, about you?
I respect that, even if it's wrong.
No, about you, when they come across you, do they just think that, well, Jesus died for your sins, so you can do whatever you want? Like, you can become Muslim, it doesn't matter, he died for your sins, at the end you're going to be Christian? Is that what they believe, or what?
Well, that's not how they look at it.
No, what they believe is, at the end times, you're going to accept Jesus.
I see.
Every knee shall bow.
And then off you go into the furnace, baby.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
they say every knee shall bow. Well, it depends what type of evangelical you're talking to. They don't necessarily believe in like this. Like some of them will say the lake of fire is metaphorical. They believe there's two deaths. That first of all, the first death is the death of you just regularly dying, and the death that you want to avoid is the being cut off from God and Jesus Christ, like being in this this place of just sadness because you're cut off from your Lord, right? But the thing about this is that this is really strange, because so if when they come and tell you about okay, you're a Muslim, you believe in Jesus, you should be fine, right? That's not how it works, because they believe that you have to believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and that he died for you. He's your salvation. See, here's the thing. Muslims don't use the word salvation. Why do they use the word salvation? Because they believe in the eternal sin, the first sin of Adam and Eve. We Muslims don't believe that. We believe that Allah forgave Adam before he came to earth. But they believe that that inherited sin, because of that, human beings are never worthy of forgiveness.
I see.
So salvation is needed, and that salvation is Jesus. And that's what's separate. So they will say that if you don't accept that salvation, then you face eternal damnation, which is being cut off from God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. Jesus on the cross, dying and resurrection, is in a sense the sacrifice. The reason we don't have that in Islam is because we sacrifice a goat. But they believe that was the one-time goat sacrifice for all of humanity. And that is more evidence, but it just ties in with what people like Bart D. Ehrman have said, that as Christianity got pulled into the Roman Empire, it started mixing traditional Christian theology with Roman paganism. It's a very pagan idea, if you think about it, and also the idea of Jesus being both God and man.
Yeah.
Well, you look at Greco-Roman mythology, that's obviously tied in with things like Hercules. So
you know what I find funny too is that the way they try to they're gonna push Jesus on you, or Jesus Christ. They believe it in two ways: either by a guilt trip, that he died for you, he loves you so much, that kind of thing, or the fact that that he's like essentially that if you don't accept him as a Messiah, that you're being condemned to the hellfire, right? There's no chance for you. Everybody else is a liar. However,
you don't accept him as God.
Yeah, God, right. But here's the funny part. If you go to places like, and I tell Christians this, I say, listen, what you're selling me, I can't buy. Forget about Islam, because the second option is they're going to try to bash every other religion around them. Oh, Muhammad is this, Allah is the devil, snake, serpent, Allah was what? All these things they do, right? They come up with. Because they want you to simply just abandon your other belief with the hope of accepting Jesus, right? But here's the problem. I tell them, I'm not buying what you're selling. Why? Because I have problems fundamentally of how you represent God in your Bible. Like if you go to Galatians 3:13, it's crazy to me. It literally says that Jesus died. Yeah, pull up the verse. Jesus basically died on the cross, or basically bore the sins of man, became curse for the law to bear your sins. And essentially, Jesus becomes cursed to absorb all your sins. And they explain how he becomes cursed. And they tie it to a verse in Deuteronomy where it says, he who lets, if someone is,
Christ has Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law.
By becoming a curse.
Having become a curse for us.
Yeah.
Wow.
So by the way, they tie this to Deuteronomy, and Deuteronomy says, if you let someone die, or hang, if you punish them or kill them by hanging, and you let that body hang overnight, you defile, that person is cursed because you defile the land that your Lord God gave you. So Jesus Christ is not only dying, but he's then being hung on a cross for 3 days, right? Or something like this, right? He's hanging there for a bunch of time. And so they say, well, this is to get around that, right? They say, well, he becomes a curse to take all of our curse. So I asked them, I said, think about what you're saying. You're asking me to believe that God becomes cursed, takes on a curse. So is he holy or is he cursed? And well, you have to understand, he took it on, your curse for him and onto him. And I'm like, well, God can't have two contradictory natures. He can't be truthful and a liar.
It's the guilt.
He can't, yeah, I mean,
I was thinking about this, and I was wondering, do you think it's possible? And again, this is all conjecture and guesswork, but you know how when the Prophet ﷺ was dying, he was in a lot of pain, and he was taking on what's so told that his pain was equating to the forgiveness of Muslims in general, or people who believe in Islam, and did maybe Prophet Isa went or was going through that or something similar?
Wait, are we saying that Muhammad was bearing the burden?
Because that's what they say, right? A lot when he was dying, that his death was painful.
But I mean, every death, sakrat al-maut, means everyone goes through that. But I think what you're saying is the final word was ya ummati, right? Or no, but
are you saying that the physical pain that he felt was something that was connected to the believers?
That's what some Muslims
No, I think
that.
what he's trying to say is that he's heard that some people say that his physical pain he was feeling was taking on some of, the sins of the ummah.
I don't know.
I never saw actual hadith or anything related to this. It's just something that people say.
That sounds fishy.
And I'm like, wait.
Let's just assume that's true. Let's just assume that saying of some Muslims is correct. If that is correct, that would explain how it got caught, that concept of prophets somehow taking away some of the sins through their prayers, through their good life.
Yeah, well, people always want
marriage with Roman paganism. Once again, it got super
right.
The early church dealt with a lot of these controversies about the dual nature of Christ. That's where the Constantine had the
Council of Nicaea.
Gosh darn it. Councils of Nicaea, thank you. All these things over several centuries, these controversies that evolved, because the early Christians didn't believe Jesus was God.
It was Arius. Arianism was dominant. Arius believed that, no, these are distinct from one another. And
right.
the Council of Nicaea said this is a heresy. We can't have that because people are thinking there's two gods now. So they had to find a way to rectify this and say, no, he's the Son of God, but it's a persona of God. So they have God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit, right? And they combine these things, and it's a persona, but they all share the essence. However, They also run into an issue, though, because there's a concept that's unique to them that the Christian theologians came up with, and it's called aseity. And aseity basically means it's the property of someone being completely and uniquely independent. And that property of aseity only lays with the Father. Why? Because simply put, the Father begot the Son, but the Son can never beget the Father.
I see.
So at some point, there was no Son, but there was a Father. So the Father is completely independent of the Son, right? But then they'll come back and say, well, before that is, I am that I am, right? All these things, right? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with the Father. But in the beginning, before that, they wrestle with theology that God existed before any creation. Even the beginning of time, He existed, right? So theologically, it says, well, in that
Realm.
t minus 0, is it just God, or is it God and the Son? But when did He beget the Son? Right, at some point, that's an action. Yeah.
By the way, not all Christians believe that. Some Christians think the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are co-eternal and uncreated from the beginning of time, all three of them.
Yeah.
Because the problem, according to the church theologians that agreed upon the councils of Nicaea, is that if you say that God the Father alone is the creator and sustainer of all things, what you're kind of saying is that these other two versions, the Holy Spirit and Jesus as God, that these are somehow not important. These are somehow lesser gods, which sort of undermines the concept of the Trinity, co-equal, co-eternal.
Exactly, but then,
right.
And I think most Christians actually hold on to that they don't, because they need to, right, to not say that there's three distinct gods. Yeah. But if you look at the verbiage in the Bible, if it says begotten, denotes something. Begot means that a father has a son. It's a literal physical thing, right? So they will come back and say, well, no, that means in the world, right? Meaning when He begot the Son through the mother, right? Some will say that. They'll argue ignorantly, they'll say that. But the problem is that then what was Jesus doing? How come Jesus is not mentioned anywhere in the Old Testament?
Right.
Right? I mean, and this is, and if you look at the way the Torah is written, the Father, if you want to leave it that way, is very explicit about who He is and what He wants.
Well, hold on. If you ask most Christians, they'll say that Jesus is the Messiah. So therefore, they would say that He is mentioned in the Old Testament. Because if I'm not mistaken, the Messiah is going to be mentioned in the Old Testament.
Oh, sure, He's mentioned. I'm not denying He's not mentioned, but I'm thinking that as a God, as a deity, there's no mention of Jesus, right? And that's the whole problem. Like Jesus comes back later in the New Testament and says, well, I am that I am, or why do you say I'm good? Only God is good. Like they'll use verses like this like He's very, okay, let me put it this way. Even if I want to be charitable and say the New Testament understanding is correct, and there are verses that imply that Jesus is, giving indication of His divinity, right? But even in the language, if you look at the Old Testament versus the New Testament, God is never shy in the Old Testament. He tells you exactly who He is. I'm your God. I'm jealous. I mean, very clear. Don't worship any other gods. But it seems to me that Jesus, if He is God, that God becomes shy in the Old Testament. And the New Testament, I'm sorry.
Right. One of the things that I started looking into on my journey to Islam is I realized that when I became Christian, and I found Eastern Orthodox Christianity as a teenager, my family was not really religious. So this is something I glommed onto as a way to get out of the house, and something that I found spiritually fulfilling and great in a lot of ways. But one of the things I realized in my journey to Islam later as an adult is that I had never gone back and looked at the Old Testament rabbinical arguments against the idea of Jesus being God.
Yeah.
And one of the rabbis I found on YouTube, some people hate him, some people love him in the Muslim community, Rabbi Tovia Singer.
Oh, Tovia Singer, yeah.
He made a really good point. I would credit Rabbi Tovia Singer for being one of the people who helped me come to Islam, ironically, because he made a really good point. He's like, if God really was Jesus incarnate and there really was a Trinity, why is it the entire Old Testament He said, I'm just one person, I'm God the Father up here, and y'all are down here?
But you know the argument they
doesn't
give
make
you.
sense.
They'll say this is a compound unity. By the way, they do the same
Right.
thing they do. It's funny. For some reason, Christians try so hard to find Trinity in the Quran and Torah. Do you know they do this with the Quran too? They say, "Qul
they
huwa Allahu ahad, ahada." They say this is Allah is one of many, one of them.
They do.
And the same thing with when they say echad in Hebrew, they say this is a compound unity.
So ahad is ahad.
Yeah, echad, yeah. Yeah,
ahad.
so they try to say, oh, well, there's a compound. But then to what the credit that Harry just brought up is that you find almost like explicitly that it's not just him saying he's one in the Old Testament, the demonstration that he's one, that there's no one else to be worshipped, that it's the biggest sin to have to bring any other partner next to God. Just imagine this. In the Old Testament, the law is that if you had any paganism, any idolatry at all, you had to kill them. You couldn't tolerate it. It's that disgusting. There was no tolerance for, I believe the Amalekites were wiped out for that very reason, because they were such disgusting pagans because of their idolatry that they had to be, their entire generation, even animals they touched, everything had to be wiped out. And so, but I'm just very curious though for you, were you raised like Baptist or Catholic? What were you raised originally?
No, I come from a Catholic background. Both my parents come from Catholic backgrounds.
Okay.
My parents got involved in the New Age stuff back in the 70s. They actually met on a commune, of all places.
Commune?
I know that is, yeah.
commune back in the 1970s.
Pretty
There
cool,
were
though.
a lot of alternative communities back in the 70s. My dad had come back from Vietnam, and my mother was getting out of not the best home life. And they met each other on a couple different, they tried a couple different alternative communities back in the 1970s.
But their
The first
background
one
was Catholic?
Their background was Catholic, but they got into the New Age stuff back in the 60s and
Understood.
70s. And yeah.
Well,
so
well,
one
the-
of the things,
Yeah, the reason
they-
why I'm asking about that is this, because I would say in my studies of Christianity, like I think the Protestant wing is like, these are like the batshit crazy people. Like, and what I mean by this is, I mean as respectful I can be, but they are like the people that are Quran alone. Like,
yeah. So it's interesting you say that, because I got into Eastern Orthodoxy in my teens, and that did give me a different lens compared to the Protestant world. And Jordan Peterson, I know everybody hates him right now, and he did screw up, but he made a really good comment, is that the Orthodox tradition preserved very well this idea that you can't just accept Jesus as your savior. You actually have to pick up your cross and struggle.
thank
and be
you.
like
I was going to
Jesus.
mention that. So the
Yeah.
one thing I love about for me, I call Protestantism fake Christianity. And I'll tell you why. If I was going to, and I
This
find
is
myself
stuff.
oftentimes getting along with Catholics and Russian Orthodox, I'll tell you why.
Or Russian.
Because they have a tradition of scholarship. And it's not just salvation by faith alone. There's action that has to be done. And they take that. Like, you know, when the Quran mentions Rahbaniyun, people who are monks, who study, these are real life monks. I mean, they literally sit inside of, monasteries, and they do like this dedication to God. But the thing about them, though, is that they are rooted, as much as I disagree with them, but I can appreciate that they are rooted in a couple thousand years of history.
I see.
That they have,
Yeah.
you can't just come in, like a lot of these Protestants, and problem in America, I believe, is that every single Tom, Dick, and Harry can be a prophet one day. Oh, the Holy Spirit put it on my heart
Yeah.
today, I have to do this. And they can change anything. They can come up with anything, right? But in traditional Orthodox Christianity, no, there's a process. You're actually mentored by a father. You're accountable for certain things. You can't just speak for the church without authority. Like, there's a chain of
Right.
command.
Right. This was a major problem in early Christianity, because it didn't have any scholarship, and it didn't really have any chain of command. So this is why Constantine called the councils of Nicaea. This is why over time the bishops sort of developed a hierarchy and a set of agreements with each other. And the Orthodox Church, for all of its faults, did preserve that traditional element. Unfortunately, it also preserved a lot of the things that are shirk,
Right.
because of the confusions that entered over time. I actually thought about becoming a monk at one point. That was something I was looking into. I visited a lot of monasteries over the years before I became Muslim. Really good people.
I mean, it's a noble thing, right? Like you shun the world,
Yeah.
you dedicate your life to God. And if you look, like I've looked at documentaries on Mount Athos, like and like these are
Beautiful
Russian.
place.
Man, these people, like, they don't. It's funny, like they don't allow any like technology. There's no women allowed. These are just monks that live over there. They don't even bring like different like female animals. Like they just keep
World's largest bachelor pad.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it
Like,
really?
Yeah.
and they have
Yes.
a strict ritual that they wake up a certain time and pray, and they have to carry out regular worldly duties like for food and all that stuff, preparing. They have all these chores. Like it's a very regimented life. It's literally a life of a monk. That's what they do.
Yeah. Something else I want to add real quick about the Orthodox world, that this is where Orthodoxy and Islam have a connection. The Orthodox have a concept, very strong concept of spiritual warfare. And it's really, if you look at it, it is about as close as you can get to the concept of jihad, the true understanding, not the ISIS understanding, but the understanding primarily of the jihad being right here. Orthodox people, they call it theosis, trying to become one with God or like God or become like a saint. But it is, in a sense, a type of understanding of tasawwuf, a misguided one.
Yeah.
But you see some elements in the traditional Orthodox theology that are very much aligned with the ideas of jihad, internal struggle, and also tasawwuf. Yeah. So I'm glad that I got to spend time in the Orthodox realm, because Islam made more sense once I did that. Interesting side note, here in Indonesia, many of the scholars have said here that if you are a Muslim and you want to marry a Christian woman, that the Quran is referring to the Middle Eastern Christians and the Eastern Orthodox Christians, not to modern day Protestants who are evangelical and Zionists.
Wow.
So they say, if
I
you're
can
gonna
see
marry a
why they would
Christian,
say that. I can see why they
you
would
can
say
see
that.
why they would say that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways, I
absolutely.
think we've spent a lot of time on Christianity, unfortunately. But, yeah.
okay.
So there's a whole.
Nice nerding out about it.
No, I'm saying there's a lot of stuff happening around Israel, and I know you're gonna pull something up, but I just want to because there's been so much going on. I just want to highlight this. Benny Gantz stepped down. Remember we were talking about this, and it happens, right? Then after he steps down, then 8 IOF pigs get to like blown to smithereens, right, in Rafah. Then all of a sudden they announce a tactical ceasefire, right? And then now they're looking at, and here's the crazy thing. With Benny Gantz down, Netanyahu is no longer pressured to try to make the Orthodox recruit. What does that mean? It means that they can't find more draft people to pick up, right? Because
those people couldn't fight anyway.
yeah, but I'm saying, yeah. So go ahead.
That's why
And speaking of draft, I think you're going to pull up something.
Here we go. So
That our primary priority should be the people.
Glen Greenwald was on Tucker Carlson. By the way, we don't just give lip service when we say there are many Jews who are against what Israel says.
He's one
Glen,
of them.
Glen Greenwald is one of them. Dave, what's his name? What's
Dave Smith.
Dave Smith,
Yeah.
Dave Smith.
comedian,
Yeah.
who's come on Rogan and many other shows all
sir.
across the world.
Very
There's so
sensible
many.
dude,
But this is a good interview as well. Just want
a
to share
great
this with you
interview.
guys.
It's like 2 hours long, right? Hour and a half, 2 hours. I
Yeah.
think.
Tucker's
our
got a serious
country.
watch,
I
man.
can't tell
Can
you
I
how
just
many
comment on that real
Republican
quick?
members of
Look at that
Congress or
watch.
Republican journalists or pundits I've interviewed over the last 2.5 years who say we can't be financing the war in Ukraine because we don't have the money to be financing other countries' wars, nor should we be doing that. Our focus should be on our own country. And every single time, well before even October 7th, I would ask them, does that also apply to Israel? And they would kind of stammer and stutter and not want to say it. But now, you say like you don't care about Israel, and I totally understand that. The problem though is that Israel has received far more aid from the United States than any other country by far over the last 3 to 4 decades. We pay for their military. We pay for every time there's a new war, we send them billions and billions of more on top of the $4 billion a year that Obama negotiated with Netanyahu. Not only do that, but we arm them. The
also
bombs
fight
that they
wars to
use
fight
to
their
kill
enemies.
Gazan civilians come from the United States. And I think worst of all, we isolate ourselves from the entire rest of the world. Do you know how many votes there have been at the UN over the past 7 months where the entire world is on one side and Israel and the United States stand alone on the other? With, a couple of those tiny little countries that we often bribe, like Micronesia and Marshall Islands, the part of the coalition of the
It's
willing.
literally
Remember
called
that?
Micronesia.
Yeah, exactly. Micro. It's like so. You know, it's also just the standing in the world, like our sacrificing of soft power. So we give up so much for Israel in so many other ways that if you're an American citizen, you have to care about it, even if you don't want to. You know, one of the stories we did.
What I meant was, I feel emotional. Like, I just have like gut level affection for it because I've had such a nice time there, and I like so many Israelis personally and know a lot, and I just like there's nothing more wonderful than having dinner in Jerusalem on a summer night. It's just so I have a lot of affection. I guess that's what I'm saying. So I'm not sort of animated by, you know, anything really. I'm just like I live here, so do my kids, so did my ancestors. It's like I just care about this country, and if you're changing my life or stripping my rights from me that we've had for 250 years on behalf of any other place, you are my enemy. Like, it's just that simple. You are my enemy. I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't want even to have this conversation.
Well, that's the amazing thing, is that the devotion to Israel is so great and so incomparable to the devotion of any other foreign country that it's to the point that their supporters of Israel, are willing to deconstruct and erode and sacrifice the core basic rights that as Americans, by definition, we're supposed to enjoy.
See, I won't accept
in defense
that.
Of that
I
other
won't
country.
accept
that.
that.
Is what's happening.
This is my country. I'm from here. I'm going to die here. I will not accept that. And I don't care what you call me. You can't take away my right to say what I think. That is the foundational right in the United States of America, and it's the only thing that prevents us from becoming, you know, Stalinist.
Yeah. So
110%.
there you have it. So the rights they're talking about is, of course, the legislation they passed in Congress, where they said if you say anything against or say that Israel is behind any kind of anything against Israel is basically anti-Semitic.
They tried to craftily frame it. Basically, what they're saying is, if you're going to make an accusation against Israel, then, and if it can't be against only Israel, meaning that it has to apply for every other country. So if you're saying, why are we giving Israel money? If you say, why are we giving North Korea money? Why are we giving Egypt money? You can't levy accusations that are not true for other countries, right? But the problem is they don't talk about how disproportionately we do that, right? But just one quick thing on a note. And Glen Greenwald hits on something like this, and I don't know if people are paying attention, but speaking of alienation, it's important to note that because of America's actions, right now, many Middle Eastern countries have to be on board. Yeah. Because America is the top dog, right, in that region. American hegemony reigns supreme.
That's changing, though.
But it is. And a great indication of that is what just happened recently.
The petrodollar thing?
Yes. Yeah. Saudi Arabia has petitioned last year to join BRICS, and now they're not renewing that 50 or 70-year-old or 50-year-old negotiation that the petrodollar, the dollar would be used to, buy and sell oil. And they're opening up and saying we want to have the ability to sell oil in any currency we want to. Now, here's the thing. Does that mean that it's going to fall through that way? Me personally, my opinion is no. I think Saudis, they would love to continue a partnership with America. What they're doing is they're leveraging the current situation and showing America we have other partners to work with. You have to sweeten up this deal for us. You've been putting way too much pressure on us to make us clean up and modernize and come down on terrorism and all this stuff, right? But, we don't need to bend the knee to every time now. We've got other people
That's
that
definitely
we can...
true.
Yeah, but here's the thing. There's a clarification.
Part of that, though.
I actually looked into this. There was no actual agreement. There's no written agreement that Saudi Arabia is going to exchange the dollar for the petrodollar. It doesn't exist.
It feels like a dangle, like something being dangled.
It's an agreement.
Well, it was a verbal agreement that took place on the USS.
An unofficial agreement.
It's an unofficial
agreement given years ago. But the thing about the petrodollar, and this is partially why, I don't know if you guys noticed, there wasn't really a whole lot of panic in Washington, at least publicly, when the petrodollar officially ended. And the reason is because we're moving to a multipolar world.
Yeah.
Even putting aside the whole thing with Israel, we're moving to a multipolar world order. There's been this prediction for a long time, and I used to believe this, by the way, that the U.S. dollar was going to tank and we were going to become the next Zimbabwe. We are experiencing some inflation right now, but there's other reasons for that. U.S. dollar is going to be around for a while. The U.S. dollar is kind of like a centipede with 1,000 legs, 100 legs. And the petrodollar was just one of its many legs that it stands on.
Right.
There's a lot of architecture globally
Saudi
in
Arabia,
the financial system for why the U.S. dollar is going to be around for a while.
Saudi Arabia has
And
so many investments.
Saudi Arabia didn't really need to be with us.
Right.
Here's the thing, right? If the American dollar falls, all these potential competitions to America, they own most of our debt.
Right.
So they
That's
would lose.
true.
Yeah, I mean, China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, they own our debts.
They will shoot themselves in the foot by
Yeah,
it.
they would
have no incentive
devalue
to destroy the dollar.
Right. And so the idea, and that's why I don't panic. And to be honest, it's a natural progression. America really rose to prominence after World War II. Why? Because there was no other superpower that could bear that. America had not expendable money.
Vacuum.
They made deals and they solidified the American dollar. Because before World War II, what was it? It was like you had the British pound, and before that it was the
French.
the franc, the British. I mean the French lira. I'm sorry, the French lira.
Yeah.
Right, and America just became default. But it was only a matter of time that other nations would build back up. So it's not that the American dollar is going to go away, but there's just more competition. That's all it is.
That's a good way of
The
putting it.
British pound used to be the world reserve currency until the Suez Canal crisis, until Bretton Woods and all that jazz.
Right.
And the British pound is still a strong currency. It still makes up foreign reserves in multiple central banks around the world. The U.S. dollar, I mean, the United States, people say, we're going to collapse like Rome, but you have to remember the Roman Empire didn't collapse overnight. It wasn't built in a day, and it didn't collapse in a week.
Yep.
It collapsed in stages over time. And there was another half of the Roman Empire called Byzantium that carried on until 1453. So, when people make all these predictions about the dollar ending and all this. But I want to get back to something real quick about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia also has a lot of those rich people that are at the top 1% of Saudi Arabia. They also own a lot of assets here in the United States.
Yeah.
Well, not here in Indonesia. They own stuff in Indonesia too. But in the United States, they got houses, condos, cars,
Businesses,
huge
sports
chunks of
clubs,
stock
sports
stakes
teams,
in Twitter.
Yeah.
It's not in their incentive to destroy the United States. Mostly they just want insulation. Like China doesn't really want to be the world reserve currency, because if they made the yuan transparent and easy to use internationally for lubricating the world's trade, the yuan, they would have so much capital flight, because China's a dying country.
Well, did you
in a
hear
lot
that
of
though?
ways.
By the
It's
way,
early.
did you hear they tried to put the yuan to the banks, and like 87% of banks favored the American dollar, and they actually chose to double down by holding more American currency and buying gold. They would rather have gold and American currency than the Chinese yuan.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Wow.
true.
And
Hey,
so-
man, I've known this as a white man for years. Y'all just want me for my money. This is not surprising to me at all.
But no, so I
Something new here.
yeah, I mean, I think. Look, and part of the reason why people say this thing is because either they're going to be doom and gloom, or it's because they're living this pipe dream that, when America collapses, Israel's gone. Right? That's the whole thing, right? America can't last forever. Every empire comes down, and when it comes down, Israel is going to go down with it, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm here to say is
used
that,
to think that.
the American economy doesn't have to go to crap in order for Israel to be controlled, right?
Oh, no, dude. No,
Yeah.
we could actually have a great renaissance by getting Israel, this giant albatross off on our neck, away.
Yeah.
Just remove this
Yeah.
necktie and go party, son. We really could. We
Yeah.
can easily rebuild our trust with people in a generation or two, especially as, the old people die and turn to soil and green. Basically when the boomers die, housing prices will go down and people will start liking us again. It's really great. So boomers, hurry up. Your time is over. Go the way of the dinosaurs peacefully. Bye-bye now.
Well, I mean, I don't know how you feel. I mean, this is a little bit. I don't want to make it too economical, but you got to worry too, though, because the housing prices might drop, right? And I think there's going to be a fundamental shift in not just America, in the world, on how people operate and how they earn income, right? And that is that
Technology,
there's machine learning, there's AI, and there's robotics, and that's something that you cannot get away from. That's more of an existential threat to any economy or a labor force than any country out there, right? Meaning that, especially in COVID, accelerated that process for companies to invest more and more into this, right? And we're seeing it now. Like, for example, in a company that I work for, we have an entire smart factory warehouse, which means that it has 4 operators and everything is run on like grid systems and robots that pick and pack and ship products. They don't have like traditional warehouses anymore, and it just basically goes out. What I'm saying though is that countries, the housing price might drop, right? But I believe that there will have to be some kind of universal basic income that the government's going to have to provide somehow, some way. I don't like it. I'm a hardcore. I mean, in the true sense of the word, meaning in a natural, ideally capitalism. Like I enjoy the free market, not the way it's set up currently, but I enjoy having free market and enterprise, private. I like that, right? But the way it is right now, and the way it's set up right now, if you're going to have robots that replace human beings and do the mundane things that everyone does, I'm talking about like your delivery driver, your cashier at the grocery store, the hardware guy at the store, good old Andy who's going to give you a nut and bolt at Ace Hardware. He's gone, right? That's stuff that people did, right? It's going to be gone. And what do? Not everybody's going to be a professional person, a highly skilled laborer.
No.
What do you do with that? Right, and
we
there's
can't all be a bunch of nerds doing podcasts.
Right, exactly. I mean, they might have a lot more free time, but the government and here's the problem: people can say, "Well, who cares? Forget about them. Let them die off." Right, the strong survive. Right, survival of the fittest. Right, but when we look at any developed nation, you look at like how people live, the index. Right, what's their happiness? Do you want to go outside your house and see people crapping on the street? Do you want to see them do you want to see a tent city? Like when you go to Los Angeles, is it nice to see Skid Row? It's not. It taints the whole area, right? You're like, oh my God.
You want riots in the streets to possibly topple and undermine your authority.
Right. And what do we know? What do we know about poverty, right? It's the bedrock of every revolution. Every takeover, it's poverty. Yeah. When people are unhappy, right, they're willing to do what they get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they're looking to blame everything, robots or immigrants or Islam, whatever it is, anything to blame for why they don't have what they need. Yeah, the Jews. I mean, so everything you want, bro, everything you can blame, and that becomes hard. So the government, in order to quell that, they're gonna have to provide some type of way for them to live, and that means, like, for example, even building homes out of 3D printed homes that cost like $17,000 to print a 1,500 square foot home and build it in one day, right? They're not going to see the use of paying someone to build a house like this. Why? So much labor into it. It's intensive. It takes a long time to do.
Housing is something that's been artificially kept high in price for a long time, mostly because of all these NIMBYs who don't want people to put in other types of zoning. So most zoning in North America and Canada and the United States, Mexico, not so much. Most of it's what's called R1 zoning, which means you have to have a house with the yard, with the garage, and it has to have a minimum square footage, yada, yada, yada. So you can't build a smaller house. Like if you look at houses built 50 years, 60, 70 years ago after World War II, like I used to own a house in Western New York where my mom's side of the family's from. I used to have a house that was built right after World War II that was just, 900 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bath. You can't build houses anywhere in America like that.
Were you in Buffalo or Rochester?
I lived in Buffalo.
Yeah. I was in Buffalo for a long time. So
Buffalo's an awesome town, dude.
Yeah.
Awesome town.
I live right on Niagara Street, bro. I was right on the west side of the city.
That's a great part.
Yeah.
But anyways, they basically, housing is an artificially created problem. There's absolutely no reason we couldn't solve it today if we wanted to, just by changing zoning laws and deregulating a little bit here.
But I think people are doing that now,
even
right?
Texas, it would be the tiny home movement. I mean,
exactly. I'm fascinated by that.
It left, and then also I would say, as somebody who is on kind of sort of a UBI, as somebody who is a retiree, because I got injured, so I have a medical pension from the Army. Yeah. I, in a sense, am kind of living a UBI life over here, where it's not that I have robots, but the cost of labor here in Indonesia is so much cheaper. And let me tell you, I can literally afford to live in a nice apartment and eat takeout every day. My life is terrible. So, it doesn't, like, the future could be really good for people if we just implement something like that.
So I get it, but what I'm saying is but that's only because you were provided for. And I'm saying the government's going to have to find a way to do that, right? And
there's no, you can't change your career enough time. At a certain point, I've been through like 10 different careers in the last decade, because of my injuries and also because of things changed. I was literally learning programming here about 2 years ago, and then I saw this whole thing with ChatGPT, and then I saw what the CEO of NVIDIA came out and said, and I realized there is no sense in me continuing to learn programming. I was starting to get good. I was practicing on my little computer every day. Doesn't matter.
Hey, you can hack the Israelis.
They're
You know?
gonna do it. Yeah, it's gonna do it. They're gonna do it without me. They don't need me. I'm useless.
Well, I mean, and I
So-
think that's what I think. I think to be fair, though, and might be something that we probably should talk about too, is that how do you maintain your independence? Because I think that's key for especially Muslim society, right? Because as nice as UBI sounds, right, as much as it is, but ideally most people would like to be able to be self-sustaining.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you have to rely on anybody, it's never a good feeling, right? Because who knows, today they might say you're getting X amount of dollars, tomorrow they're saying, well, you know what, we can't give you that much, or you know what, we're going to watch how you spend your money on what you're spending it on, right? And then, it just becomes this problem. So people are going to have to learn. And I look at it like a shift when computers started becoming normal, or like, when people used to do actual manually record keeping, right? They had bookkeepers. Can you imagine a day where people had bookkeepers? They'd have a log book and people would go down and write on transactions, and they would put it in the storeroom and pull out records and read it through. Nowadays, computers handle all that, right? And so, but at that time, they were possibly terrified that, all these jobs to go and computers are going to take everything. But essentially, it actually made more jobs, just different types of jobs. Like it grew jobs around, security and storage and networking and just, hardware, so many different types. But yes, traditionally record keeping and maybe paper printing and books like that, they went down because they didn't need that anymore. So there's a shift in mindset, right? And if you can ride that wave, you'll be good, even despite UBI coming out. You just have to know what field you want to get yourself into.
I would say two things. One is, first and foremost, take your UBI check in the future and figure out how to invest in some kind of asset that pays dividends or pays rewards at the end, whatever you make in profit afterwards. So, for example, if you wanted to invest in the 7-Eleven franchise with your UBI in the future, you could do that. Yeah. Also, I would say community is really important. Having a sense of community if you were to get shut down. I know people always talk about, hey, we could get debanked, this, that, and the other. We could get programmed with their money. We're kind of already there, even though we're not on a, CBDC. They can already turn up. My bank account was shut down by shenanigans for about a month because of my support for Palestine, I'm pretty sure. I had other Palestine activists about a year ago tell me the same thing. They can shut you down at any time right now. Look at Alex Jones, look at Nick Fuentes. These are people that have either been shut down or debanked. You've got left-wing activists that have had the same thing happen to them. Oftentimes, the powers that be in our current system will use the private banking system as a way to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was just run by the government, well, at least you have some kind of recourse here in our current system. Like you could go to a congressman and say, hey, I've been shut down. Right now in our current system, if Bank of America doesn't like you, tough cookies. Now, at least you can go to other banks. But if there was like just one CBDC or no banking and it was just all centralized, you would at least have some kind of recourse. You could go to somebody like a Thomas Massie and say, hey, Thomas, I've been shut down, bro. Help me out. There's something like that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I just think that there's going to be, I don't have all the answers, and I'm not even I haven't even considered all the possibles that are going to happen, the hypotheticals, but I think the main point that I'm trying to say is that people should be thinking about this and understanding how they're going to prepare for that, right? I think preparation is probably, because when you're in the middle of it, it's too late to plan. Right, that's when you're just being reactive, right? And oftentimes I've known in life that when you're just spending time being reactive, you're oftentimes going to make the bad decisions, right? Or you're just going to be choosing between two bad decisions, right?
And also what's the spiritual dimension, what's the purpose of my life? Well, for Muslims, we at least have the advantage of we have Salah, we have Allah Almighty. But if you don't have God in your life and you're just going to get a check every month, and you don't have any family.
Good observation.
Oof.
Yeah.
We're already seeing what's happening in the West. And, in a lot of ways, it's like that song, I think I'm turning Japanese. I really think so. Like America's slowly been turning Japanese for a long time. I would argue, forget about vaccines. I would say that's the reason we're becoming somewhat autistic now, and especially the Gen Z. The Gen Z kids, I don't know if you all notice, have a very weird, autistic, dark sense of humor.
Yeah,
and I would argue that's because they're so locked into their little computer cages all the time.
Have you heard about this thing
And you
they
see-
say called skibbity?
What's that?
No.
They keep saying skibbity about everything.
What is skibbity?
I have no idea.
Skippy? Like
Skibbity.
that? And nobody's like, is it like a skippy?
I don't know. It makes no sense to me. It's like these words that they give meaning to that have no meaning. But it's like such a postmodern thing because we talk about how like postmodernism kind of affecting society in this
Language.
way. We're just kind of making up words and assigning meaning to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane.
Hey, Harry, what do you think about, I don't know if you caught this news, but apparently, like, there was, like, a Russian submarine, like, 30 miles away from Florida. It was like,
Oh, yeah. So,
did you guys hear about that? Apparently.
I'll tell you what I think. I think they're just poking us like we've been poking them in Ukraine for years.
I'm surprised they didn't do it
For
sooner.
years we were trying to expand. Well, yeah, right. I mean, for years we've been moving NATO closer and closer into Russia. We tried to do that before the 2000 war in Georgia. That's part of the reason why Russia got involved in Georgia with those Abkhazia and South Ossetia secession movements. Is because they're like, all right, we're going to just stick our little bear toe right in there, try and put NATO to Georgia. Same thing with Ukraine.
It's so crazy because
it's all. Yeah, we've provoked the big.
Poke the bear.
Oops, I
Can't
think
really blame the Russians for doing it.
Yeah,
I really can't.
Well, I was going to
really
say
can't.
this, that I just saw, like, some of the clips about it, and it was pretty crazy to see, like, how monstrous the submarine is, like, docked right in front of Havana. Like, it's basically sitting there, right, in the Havana skyline, like, this giant Russian submarine. It's massively big. Like, it's huge.
It's huge. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely,
They got some big
without a doubt, it's letting America know that, hey, you're escalating things. We can escalate things as well. It's similar. I don't know what have you guys seen what Hezbollah did with Israel? They started showing them aerial footage of sensitive Israeli sites from their drones.
Well, I mean, not only that, they've actually
hit
hit some key targets inside of northern Israel, and right now America's trying to de-escalate because, like, hey, because they're Israel's trying to threaten Hezbollah with an all-out war now, right? And America's like, wait a minute, we got people in the south right now. We have U.S. forces there that are doing peacekeeping mission or whatever, food delivery aid, all that stuff. And now you want to start a war with Hezbollah in Lebanon. It's not a good time. And then it's just a crazy situation because
Here, let's go ahead and let's play the video for the listeners to know what we're talking about. So these are footage of what Hezbollah has released to Israel. For people who are watching on
Basically
audio,
saying we can destroy your toys. We can smash your toys.
this footage of
That's what that message
Israeli
is.
sensitive government sites, military buildings,
shipping ports.
ports.
And by the way, this is really, I'll tell you why this is really important.
Hezbollah has basically achieved equality in terms of military technology to Israel. The technological edge that Israel had for years and decades, that's gone. That's completely
So they're documenting, like, the patrol boats and, like, the routes, the shipping lanes. They're documenting all that. But here's what's really crazy. Do you remember, Harry, like maybe like 4 years ago, Lebanon and Israel were somehow about to come to an agreement. They came to an agreement about the oil that was found in the waters they shared, and they came to an agreement that they would both extract it and take a piece of it. And what Hezbollah is saying right now is that we don't care about any of that right now. Like, that same water that we're using that we can profit from, we can light it up, like light it up on fire. And that's what they're showing them. That, hey, if you want that, do you want business or do you want to go to war?
Right. Well, also what Hezbollah is saying is, like, this is our home, and we're not afraid to be martyrs as Muslim believers.
Yeah.
And what they're saying to Israel is that you guys aren't from here, and you guys will flee like rats fleeing a sinking ship if things go to hell in a handbasket, which I suspect will happen. I was watching Scott Ritter on something on YouTube last night, and Scott Ritter pointed out that Israelis are not going to be swarmed by Arabs. What's going to happen, more than likely, is that Hezbollah, Hamas, and some of the other actors in the region are going to increasingly make life so difficult that the average Israelis are going to leave. That's part of why Israeli society has been becoming more extreme over the last couple decades, because all the, shall we say, more moderate, more agreeable, more like, yeah, maybe we should have a two-state solution kind of people, the Yitzhak Rabin people of old.
Yeah.
They've all gone. They've all fled. They've all moved back to Brooklyn.
Yeah, they
The
realize
people
that there's
you
no
have
peace.
left increasingly.
Yeah, they realize
there's
that
no future.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, like the left
people
in
increasingly
Israel
are just going to be crazy like Ben Gvir. What?
Yeah, I'm saying keep in mind that it's gotten so bad. The left in Israel is like a neocon in America. That's how right wing they've gotten, right? And before it was very different, right?
Right.
But I mean, just to also mention something as well too, that I don't know if you guys saw just today in the news too, that the Houthis had sunk another ship.
Yeah.
And these people are calling on America to do something because they're just losing money. Like that first of all, it's been very expensive to have to go all the way around the Horn of Africa, right? And then now, like even the ones that are trying to get through, they just can't. They're being sunk, and like they have to do something because trade is just plummeting.
There you go.
Right, if Hezbollah takes up those ports like they say they could, like they showed in that video, that would be a death knell. Because then at that point, the only access points for food and supplies that they would have would probably be Jordan.
Yeah.
And if he hasn't done so already, I imagine King Hussein, whether you like him or not, just like Sisi and just like Mohammed VS, you know, they have to placate their people, and they can't be. Increasingly, it's getting harder and harder for them to be nice to Israel, even if they want to be. So at some point, I wouldn't be surprised if even the Jordanians shut off supplies to them.
Yeah.
And then what do they have? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I mean, to be honest, like King Abdullah of Jordan. No, is it King Hussein or King Abdullah? Abdullah, yeah.
King Abdullah.
Hussein was his father, yeah. And King Abdullah, he's working so hard because average Jordanians, especially not men, are like Palestinian, and they're like storming embassies or protesting. They're trying to go to the border, and like they're trying so hard to keep them down because they don't want to have to. They don't want Israel to attack them.
So what ship was
King Abdullah any favors? That's for sure.
It's some cargo ship. It's not like a warship or anything.
Okay.
But apparently Houthis have fired on American warships. They continually do that. I mean, the American military is, the warships are pretty sophisticated, so they're kind of batting down a lot of stuff. But constantly, daily, they're batting down, swatting down Houthi attacks. Yeah. There's no doubt about it.
The problem with American ships is not that they can't be successfully defeating the Houthis, at least in the air and navally, but the problem is that what does it cost versus what does it cost for the Houthis? The Houthis have cheap, unsophisticated stuff from Iran. Well, I won't say like a toy because that's not quite right, but they have stuff that is more sophisticated than a toy, but less sophisticated than American quality stuff. And for about $25,000, the Houthis could fly a plane into a U.S. ship that could cause serious damage, kill a lot of sailors, or sink the whole ship entirely. Worst case scenario.
You mean like a UAV,
right? The UAV. In order for, or a missile, either or. For comparison, every single ballistic air defense thingamajigger that the U.S. Navy fires, be it the rapid fire machine guns that will lasers, missiles, whatever it is, that stuff costs millions, billions of dollars a pop. And we, the taxpayer, have to pay for that, and Congress has to appropriate it. So there comes a point where, just in terms of financials, the Yemenis can do this all day, getting their crumbs from Iran on a consistent basis.
What the viewers are watching right now is a mixtape that Hezbollah released. Of all their capabilities. So this is again showing intimidation, show of force, letting people know that hey, we don't want war, but if you're going to bring it, we know what to target, and we have the capabilities to bring a lot of pain back at you.
And they just don't have. like Hezbollah just doesn't have mortar shells, right? They have like sophisticated missiles they can use, right? Like that could cause real damage.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that even from a standpoint of like what the Houthis are doing, dude, they can build like a $2,000 drone. Like, granted, the payload is probably like 50 pounds. It's nothing too major, but they can fly under the radar because it's so lightweight. Damn. They can cause all kinds of havoc that way. Like, all kinds of havoc.
$1,000 of havoc for a $2,000.
Yeah, I mean, they got one all at the Abu Dhabi airport.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's
undetected.
No, and I think how
Look, I just want to show this video that Hassan released.
Allahu Akbar.
These are rockets that they've built by their hands.
كلما رمى الحاج الجمرات الله أكبر كلما
Yeah, man, they got some. They got a lot. They got.
على رؤوس
Forget
بني
about
صهيون
Hamas's tunnels. They've got millions more miles tunnels underneath there.
يوم عرفة
They got all kinds of weapons factories that could last and produce stuff for years.
أيام العام يوم مغفرة الذنوب ويوم استجابة الدعاء.
They don't even have stands for the rocket. They're just literally bracing it with rocks behind it.
أيها المسلمون أن تخصونا إخوانكم في كتائب القسام وفي المقاومة الإسلامية في غزة أن تخصونا بدعواتكم حتى يكتب الله عز وجل لنا بإذنه تعالى النصر والتمكين على بني صهيون وإنه لجهاد جهاد نصر أو استشهاد كتائب الشهيد عز الدين القسام.
Wow, look at these guys.
It's like a control it.
You know what they're showing though right now? Before, if you know, earlier on they had the Yasin 105 where they had to run up to the tank and ignite it, right? What he's showing here is that this is fully remote controlled.
This is the Rajam 114 millimeter rocket.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Like,
but how old is that? Like, if you were
this is just recently.
No, I'm saying the contraption, the device.
These are all like. This is the point of showing that all this is that. You can make an argument that Hezbollah has, so much more stronger capabilities, but they're having a tough time against Qassam in Gaza.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But I'm thinking, and here's the other crazy part too. What they're showing the world is that they're taking Soviet scrap metal.
Yeah. That's what it felt like.
And Soviet era like technology and retrofitting it to be used in a modern era.
That's insane.
Well, they're doing some of that, but a lot of it is they've had a lot of assistance and training from the Iranians for the last decade or two. That's why they're technologically, especially with the UAVs. As one commentator I watched this morning on Al Jazeera pointed out, they've basically achieved technological equality with the Israelis. At this point, the Israelis don't have anything on them.
Do you think that's
They really don't. I mean, the Israelis, and they've already taken out. They were very smart about. You guys watch UFC fights at all? You guys know anything about fighting?
Oh, yeah, quite a bit.
When you're throwing a punch, when you're in a UFC match and you're throwing a punch, sometimes you bait somebody with a jab, this, that, and then you come in with the real swing right here. Well, that's actually, in a sense, what Hezbollah did to take out some of the Iron Dome batteries.
Throw some lightweight,
a few little piddly things here. Yeah. Right. That's what they did. They sort of baited the IDF. That's why they've been able to disable a lot of the Israeli air defense in northern Israel.
So it's basically like creating a smoke screen and then launching a real weapon.
They were launching smaller caliber stuff.
Yeah.
So that the Israelis, doing what they always do, overreacted, which gave away the location of some of these batteries, and then they brought in the heavier, faster stuff. And that's how they were able to take out these batteries. Hezbollah's very smart. Scott Ritter pointed out they've been training for 10, 20 years. They've been strategizing. Israel is just reacting. They're not strategizing. They're panicking.
So I think what the thing about Israel, what makes them a threat to that region, is their air force.
Aerial attacks, that's it.
Right. And to be honest, that's almost in many ways mimicking the U.S. policy, right? Where we're dominant because of our aircraft carriers and our air force. Technology. We can rapidly deploy anywhere we need to, faster than anybody else. Right?
In the era of fifth generational warfare, it's not as valuable to be a fighter jet pilot. It just isn't. Fighter jets are still valuable. They're not as valuable as drones increasingly. And we're going to get to the point where ships are big sitting
Sitting
floating
ducks. Yep.
We're not going to be. Ships are not going to be valuable
Like
either.
you can accompany
This
them
is
with
part of
gunner ships and all that stuff, but if you have drones coming in, it doesn't mean nothing.
Right. Well, I mean, this is why, China, if China was to launch conversely, if China was to launch a mainland invasion of Taiwan, they'd have a real devil at the time because the Taiwanese would basically do to the Chinese Navy what the Houthis are doing to us. And
Right.
I don't know if the Chinese have as good air defense.
Well,
technology
that's exactly the
on their
thing about
ships.
what China started doing, because the U.S. is doing that to them right now in the South Chinese Sea. We have aircraft carriers there. They anytime. I get what you're saying.
Is if China was to invade,
Yeah, I get what you're
Taiwan,
saying.
they would have the same.
But
sort
I'm
of
saying
problem.
Taiwan could do exactly what China has done right now. I wouldn't pick the page off the book because America increased its presence with aircraft carriers, and what China did was develop these crazy ICBMs that can just surface-to-air missiles that can just hit these gunner ships around, battleships around an aircraft carrier, and then it's a sitting duck. And Taiwan can do exactly the same thing to any large Chinese ship coming in there. They can
Absolutely, 110%.
Yeah.
Taiwan actually has a fairly sophisticated missile technology industry itself. So
it's a different ball game, boys. Yeah,
it's a different
It
ball
is.
game. Yeah,
But what do you
in
guys
the
make
era
of-
fifth generational warfare? You don't really need to have the most advanced, biggest, baddest stuff. In fact, it can become counterproductive.
And the crazy thing is that you don't even need the same manpower anymore. Like that's the,
No,
I mean, like
don't.
you don't have. I mean, think about each aircraft carrier. How many naval officers are on that ship?
Yeah.
Gunships around it. How much? I mean, dude, this crazy stuff that goes into maintaining.
Carries about 2,000 to 5,000 people, man.
Right.
And
then
if anyone was to strike the United States mainland, they just need to know how many or where the naval yards are. There's not that many. That's the thing. Like they've shut down so many naval yards. The United States only has a few left where they're making ships, and that just removes the entire capability of the U.S. Navy.
Wow.
So it's not necessarily about what kind of weapon you have, but where you hit them, where it hurts.
Very true.
That's why America is very nervous about that, because
David and
our,
Goliath.
our biggest advantage that we have, what do we have, Harry? Something like 16 aircraft carriers, but only I think 7 are currently being used. But
We've gotten rid of some of our aircraft carriers. We used to have a lot of destroyers. So part of the deal with globalization was that by keeping all these trade routes open and being the one ring to rule them all, the global hegemon, our Navy really patrolled the oceans and kept everything open. But we've gotten rid of a lot of our destroyers. We're increasingly moving away from that. And it goes back to what we're talking about here, which is there's a lot of momentum behind, we got to have advanced fighter jets and planes. It's an old way of thinking. Just like when you tell old people that in 30 years nobody's going to be working, we're all going to be on UBI. They're like, what? I can't really understand that. But the younger generation understands that fighter jets, ships, these large ships, these are going to go the way of the dinosaurs. Colonel Douglas McGregor,
I was just going to mention that guy. He's always sounding the alarm.
We really need to move towards submarines and smaller technology. And I think he's right. I think submarines would be a much better thing for the U.S. government to spend.
But he's always sounding the alarm that we're not spending enough in the military. We don't have enough airplanes. We don't have enough this. Like he's always sounding, and I'm thinking in my head that, well, that's not really the game now anymore. Like we don't need to worry about having more aircraft carriers and more fighter jets.
Well, he said that we need more submarines, and he's also very much an America firster. He doesn't want to keep us patrolling around the world or have these nonsense never-ending wars.
Well, in that regard, I believe submarines are probably going to be the better option, just because of the stealth and the ability to, carry these huge payloads that we do, nuclear technology. But I mean, again, what's the average time it takes to build one of these submarines? I think something like 6 years or something. It's a long time. It's not.
It's a long time. It can take a decade.
Yeah,
a decade.
I mean, but
wow.
It can. Yeah, I mean, it's advanced nuclear. I mean, think about how long it takes to build a nuclear power plant. Most of these submarines are nuclear in our fleet.
Yeah,
keep
in mind they have to be able to be at sea without gas, without they have to be able to fuel themselves.
Right.
A lot of them stay they'll be in operations where they'll stay underwater for 4 or 5 months at a time.
Absolutely.
And they're just collecting data, intelligence, They're just patrolling, and they don't come up very often because you can't have something that comes up every so often. You're going to give away your position. You have to be able to live as long as you can underwater.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What do you guys especially in your hostile territory.
What do you guys make of little switch
we're moving away from that.
No, what do you guys think of Netanyahu, again, sounding the alarm about America, begging for more and making his English presentation.
He looks like Zelensky, dude.
Yeah,
he looks like Zelensky.
And making his videos in English now.
That's the
Zelensky like, hey, if you have money, give me a loan, I pay back loan. Like, what? What are you saying, you beggar?
Asking you for the contribution.
No, but this was a little different, though. He's like commanding. Like Netanyahu is more of like a commander.
Well, he got used to that because stupid-ass American politicians did allow him to do that in 2003. Remember when he wasn't prime minister, he was like an ambassador, and he comes out and he goes, if you take out Saddam Hussein, you're going to have positive reverberations throughout the Middle East, and terrorism will be gone. And it just backfired in America.
So here he is. This is what Biden is upset about, this message that Netanyahu released.
When Secretary Blinken was recently here in Israel, we had a candid conversation. I said I deeply appreciated the support the U.S. has given Israel from the beginning of the war. But I also said something else. I said it's inconceivable that in the past few months, the administration has been withholding weapons and ammunition to Israel. Israel, America's closest ally, fighting for its life, fighting against Iran and other common enemies. Secretary Blinken assured me that the administration is working day and night to remove these bottlenecks. I certainly hope that's the case. It should be the case. During World War II, Churchill told the United States, give us the tools, we'll do the job. And I say, give us the tools and we'll finish the job.
Yeah, you're better than Churchill. That's what I'm trying to say.
When Secretary Blinken
he looks panicked. Look at his body language. Look at his face. So he's not normally that exuberant. Normally he's much calmer, but you can see he's like he's kind of jittery.
Putting his foot into it. He's shaking around. Yeah.
So
he's withholding a lot of anger.
He's talking about the dumb bombs that Biden's administration held back, and he's upset about it, even though it makes very little difference to what their overall amount of aid that they're getting and all the everything. Like he doesn't, what's underneath his skin is that even that symbolic block that Biden did is something that he
publicly done.
That publicly did is getting underneath his skin. So he's used this platform to kind of talk about how Biden is undercutting him and not allowing him to finish his job of, genociding the entire Palestinians out of.
But I would tell them had like 6 months of all this.
That Trump will back him up 100%.
No, I'm saying you had 6 months of a complete arsenal of American at your disposal, and you couldn't finish the job.
So in response to this video, Biden, there was an Israeli envoy that was on their way to Washington. He cancels the trip and sends them back home. So there's trouble in paradise. Basically, there's a little bit of. By no means are they breaking up, but there's just
sending messages to
each other that hey,
they're just having a casual fight.
Yeah,
there's a lot of internal dissent in the State Department, and that's why this is happening.
Well, I think people are realizing
and
also
they're also looking at poll numbers in places like Michigan.
Well, look at the optics, right? I mean, it doesn't help that America is the only country voting against recognizing Palestine. It doesn't help at all, right? Especially when you're trying to be that player in the Middle East, in the MENA region, right? And you're that one oddball. Even countries like Norway are saying, hey, wait a minute. Maybe we need to recognize. This is not like failing Spain or, rebellious Ireland. This is developed and advanced Norway saying that, hey, you know what? We need to recognize these people. And that makes America what it makes them look like it's unreasonable. Like, people are beginning to ask the question, like, why is America being so unreasonable? What is so important about supporting Israel? And that question becomes harder and harder to answer.
Israel's girlfriend. It makes us look like Israel controls us, which is the worst possible outcome for us. It says we're not really in control. You can't run the world and say, I'm the world leader, when it looks like somebody much smaller than weaker than you is in your ear and controlling you. You're not really in control of this person's coming over here.
Everybody's talking about that now. Social media is filled and flooded with it. My other thought and concern is in the midst of all this, come November, and 2025 when we have a new president. What do you think internally is going to happen? I mean, because these are all compounding issues. You have immigration issue, you have the Palestine issue, Gaza issue, then you have internal politics. What do you think? What do you guys think is going to happen in America? Like, what's the landscape going to look like?
I would say it's actually going to get a lot worse, but it will get better in the long run, inshallah. And because this is a generational conflict. In a way, and I get in trouble for saying this, but I'm just going to say it anyways. I'm not going to say that slavery had nothing to do with the Civil War, but when you look at it objectively without the neo-Confederate propaganda or the pro-America unionist propaganda, the Civil War was clearly a catalyst for the slavery issue was clearly the catalyst for the Civil War, but there was a lot of stuff going on in the background before that. In the same way, I would say that this issue with Israel-Palestine is, in a sense, a sort of catalyst for a much deeper generational struggle for the soul and direction of the nation that's been going on for a long time. And we've had little spits and spurts here and there over the last decade or two, but really, especially with Gen Z, the Gen Z and the younger millennials in particular are just saying to the boomers and the older Gen Xers, go stuff yourself. Because if you look at where the support for Israel lies, it's all along the boomers. It's all with the older Gen X. And then you get to millennials, it's like 50-50. And then Gen Z is just like, hell no. So in the short run, it is all going to be continuing to rubber stamp Israel, even if they say rhetorically, we don't like this. In the long term, though, in the next 5 to 10 years, which is why part of the reason why the people who predict the downfall of Israel often use the time frame of 5 to 10 years, because sorry, old people, y'all have had your time. It's time to step aside. Y'all don't understand TikTok. It's hands off TikTok. There's actually a lot of positive. I will say one dark spot about the young people taking over, and this might change the conversation direction a little bit, but I really liked how Sneeko met up with the America Firsters like Vincent James and Nick Fuentes and Jake Shields and all that. I got into it a little bit with Jake Shields on Twitter, by the way. I don't know if I showed you that comment response. You guys remember that? Did I say no? But I, as Muslims, I want to put out this one caveat. A lot of the America Firsters are right to criticize Jewish or specifically Zionist involvement in American politics, and that I definitely agree with. But I want to warn fellow Muslims. There's always a danger when you start taking on other people's language to describe Islamic issues. We do not need Mein Kampf to describe. We don't need Mein Kampf to describe our relationship with the Jewish people.
That's true.
I think the Quran and Sunnah gives us plenty of guidance on how to interact with the Jews, what their good side are, what their bad stuff is, how to deal with them. So I'm glad that Sneeko met up with all these people, but ideally we want to be giving them guidance and bring them onto their team. Don't get so pulled into their stuff that we have another Holocaust. That's just, I want to put that
because we don't want, essentially we don't want that, right? We want to be the guiding light, right? If we believe that we have the truth, then we should present that as with supreme confidence and say, listen, you want to know how to deal with the Jews? Come to us. We'll teach you how to deal with the Jews, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to Holocaust them. No, just look at history, how we've done this, right? We were able to do it without Holocausting them, without, and we've had people like the Rambam, who came out of Muslim Egypt that wrote things like Igat Tayman, which is like their most authoritative book on the Talmud, right? And so what I'm saying, though, is that I think that here's a problem with this. With any groups, unfortunately what happens is it becomes all black and white. And in reality, I think Islam recognizes that not everything is black and white, and there's a large gray area. Like there are Jews that will be people who are in the class of people that are monks, who just simply study Torah and you leave them alone. There are Jews who will be allies, who will say, yes, we agree that's wrong. They're upright people, and they speak the truth, and they say, this is wrong what's happening. And then there will be those ones that who Allah describes have those evil characteristics that will try to cause fasad on the earth, right? But but only Islam will allow us to put that lens on and be able to decipher who those people are and what category to put them into and how to deal with them, right? We don't want to turn into someone, because to be honest, when you hear Nazi language, right? Like, you understand why Israel would behave the way they do, right? I mean, if someone were to come out and say, I want to kill every single Muslim and all Muslims are vermin, rats, and blah, 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 naturally, even if you're not even a strong believer, you can be like, well, screw you, man. I'm going to take you out, right? Yeah. Like, it's just how you're going to think, right? Because that could be my family, my mother, my wife, my whatever. It could be anybody, right? So you start being reactionary. And that's not how we solve the problem, because every reaction brings a counter reaction.
For sure. One of the problems with the whole America First movement that's happening is not necessarily the movement itself. There's, I don't know if you guys remember, like a few years ago, there was huge, it started as a huge pushback against feminism, and many people who were bringing like valid criticisms against feminism were kind of being seen as anti-woman, and that wasn't necessarily the case, but it just became like a gender war, right? And when Sneeko went there, he ended up like getting into some scuffle with some security guard, and that security guard just jumped up from his platform and knocked one of his teeth out or something. And what was yelled at that security guard in that in that thing was like the security guard was yelling about like white supremacy and stuff like that, and they're yelling back at him about about him being racist or whatever. I'm sure they both have like frame of references there where they're speaking about something that's truthful or something that is legitimately a problem that they're seeing or perceiving, at least, right? But what inherently the America First movement is stemming from a nationalistic belief, right? Where you as a nation are concerned about only yourself, right? And you're not necessarily worried about what other people are doing.
As a reaction.
Well, it's not that
it's a very nationalistic.
Yeah. It's not that America First doesn't care about other countries. It's that America First says we need to take care of America first. We need to secure the borders. We need to pull out of police wars. We have a certain culture. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land.
But there's a hypocrisy in that, Harry, and it's something that we talked about when you were here. So it's America who's benefiting from a lot of these interactions, like from the border opening, right?
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. It's not Americans that are benefiting from it.
Many Americans are.
Whenever
I hire an undocumented, or anyone hires an undocumented worker compared to a licensed bonded technician, you're paying an eighth of what those people are charging. These licensed technicians and stuff. You're 100% benefiting.
In the eyes of the America Firsters, it is not benefiting them to have mass illegal immigration. It benefits, in the philosophy of most of America Firsters, it benefits the rich and the powerful who flood the place by leaving the borders wide open with all this cheap, unskilled labor that undercuts the wages of average American workers. That's the thesis.
So Harry, let me ask you something. I'm not really heavily involved, or knowledgeable about this America First movement, but I've been in America my whole life, and I understand. I've seen certain, periods of ups and downs in America, and I've seen where, for me, one of the best times was, and I'm not just being nostalgic, but I think the 80s were a good time. Right, where we had Reagan in, economy was booming, started businesses, things were great, right? There was a bunch of crazy, shady stuff like Iran-Contra and, Ricky Freeway Ross and the crack cocaine epidemic. But generally speaking, like, we came off the Carter years where everyone was kind of living pretty shitty. And then, oil crisis, and now here in America it's booming, right? And then we get into the Clinton era, where we kind of have a balanced budget a little bit. We have a surplus, whatever, right? Okay, great, boom, right? Then 9/11 happens and things go in. But what I'm saying though is that are the America First people, are they content and are they going to be okay with having to pay like $4,000 for an iPhone and not getting a TV for like $200 from Best Buy? Like, are they okay spending $1,000 on a TV?
Let me first back up and say this. When I say America First, I might not agree with everything they say. So also there's going to be different factions of that. Just like when Ron Paul was big in the news, I was a huge Ron Paul guy back in 2008, 2009. I would have voted for him if he had been the president, 110%. I would say before I became Muslim, my politics were mostly closely related to Thomas Massie and Ron Paul.
So you were a libertarian?
Ron Paul and Thomas Massie's, libertarian, right-leaning libertarian.
Yeah.
But even, Ron Paul and Thomas Massie would say they don't really want a wide open border. So let me, without getting into too much detail about the a difficult easy synopsis of some of the thinking of the Mises Institute type people, and then how it ties in with the America First people. So if you are a like Ludwig von Mises type right-leaning libertarian, a sort of that sort of person, Hans Hermann Hoppe type person, the guy who wrote the Democracy, the God That Failed, you're going to point to Switzerland and say, look, Switzerland doesn't have a lot of immigration, but they have a lot of free trade. Okay. Whereas an America Firster, like more America Firster, and I would say my politics are somewhere on that spectrum between Ron Paul libertarian, right-leaning libertarian, and America Firster. The America Firster is more of a Pat Buchanan type person who's going to say, we need to like fortress America, shut down the borders, trade barriers, that sort of thing. Very anti-NAFTA. I have mixed feelings about NAFTA and free trade. I'm not as hardcore about that issue as other America Firsters.
I mean, look,
I think good. But I think you do need to have. I do think you do need to have border security, and you need to make reasonable decisions about who comes in and out of the country.
I think for me, a lot of this is about common sense, right? I mean, you want to have right people come in the country. You want to have them coming legally, and you definitely don't want an open door policy, right? You definitely don't want to have every Tom, Dick, and Harry coming into your country, right? I mean,
no, definitely not,
because you don't know who they are, right? And you don't know what their intentions are, right? And this is but here's where I come with the problem, right? And I battled the Republicans on this too. Everybody's been screaming about shutting down the borders. Illegal migrants, they're taking their jobs, they're saturating the market, labor markets are down, right? Get it. Okay, boom. I understand that 100%. My issue is this. You find these people, you tag them up, you put them in detention prisons, and you get rid of them. I'm saying they do it right now, right? The minute they find out, they get rid of them.
Yep.
Okay? Or in most cases. Some states they don't. They have sanctuaries. But in the past, that's how it was, right? But my problem is the employer who knew this guy was illegal for 5 years gets a $10,000 fine and a slap on the wrist. My personal thing is, like, if you really want to track, like, most people coming to this country are as economic migrants.
Yeah.
They're not coming for McDonald's French fries and ketchup and hamburgers and cookouts. They're coming for money.
Yeah.
If you take away the money, they're not going to come here.
Yeah.
And I say, if you really want to deal with illegal immigration, if a company gets hired even one illegal alien, right, that company mandatorily shuts down.
Yeah. No, Morty, can I say something? Look, I don't think nobody wants...
I don't know if that's necessarily a bad idea, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Shaykh. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's all good. No, what I'm saying is that, look, I don't think anyone wants illegal immigration to end. The reason why there's a lot of people shifting now is all these guys reputable, like Joe Rogan and Pat David, they're all saying, all these guys, even Candace Owens, is like, why do we have homeless people and these people are coming illegally getting $1,000 a month stipend? Why are they getting credit cards? Why are they getting this? Why are they getting all these perks when we have our own? That's kind of, I think, what the newer generation is having issues.
I get
Other
that.
than that,
No, but
nobody
I'm saying
cares about illegal immigration.
That's part of why people are mad at Israel too. Why
Yeah.
are we having homeless veterans
Exactly.
on the street?
So this is, I think, it's new phenomenon. I think we've always needed illegal immigration.
No,
for
no, no.
people
But
to do
hold
that
on. My
work.
point is that first of all, immigrants started them getting benefits is a new thing, right? It's in very liberal Democrat states,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But traditionally, the reason why they started coming to America in the first place is
understand.
So I'm saying that if you really want to track down on illegal immigration, you have to come down like the hand of God
Yeah,
on
but they're not gonna do
employers.
that. They don't
Well,
want
no,
to.
but I'm saying then you tell them you're not serious about immigration.
Yeah. No, the reason why
Maybe we could do it another way, which is do what the UAE and Qatar do, which is issue a certain limited number of work visas for specific industries. You know, there are certain industries, like even if we shut off all illegal immigration, if we kicked out all the illegal immigrants, there would still be many Americans who would not take certain jobs, particularly in agriculture.
And enlisting in the army is all.
But I mean, we have that, right? H-1B, right? We have OPT.
Here's the elephant in the room, guys.
There's a lot of loopholes.
The thing is, the United States doesn't want to do the hard work in building up Mexico. And if Mexico was a strong partner, which they don't want it to be a strong partner, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say like Mexico, you're going to be weak, but you can't send anyone over here. The NAFTA and all these trade agreements, they're still lopsided in America's favor. They may be hurting some aspects of American industry for sure, yeah, but they're still lopsided.
But America's first going to say Mexico's not a problem.
Well,
that's fine.
Hold on. Here's hold on. I understand what you're saying. Here is one good thing about the Biden administration that I will give them. I will definitely grant them this. Because we're deglobalizing, especially after the whole fiasco with COVID, where we're depending on China for pharmaceuticals and surgical masks, and that was just a big red flag for a lot of people. One of the advantages to deglobalization and pulling all these American assets, all this financial stuff, and all these companies, bring them back, reshoring them, is that a lot of that reshoring actually doesn't necessarily land back in America. It's actually landing in parts of Latin America like Colombia and Mexico. Peter Zion, who's a commentator and political scientist, talks about this a lot. So kudos to the Biden administration. To some extent, I will give them credit where credit is due. For, they actually have done more than Trump to reshore a lot of things. Trump was very rhetorical, but Biden administration, and I'm not a huge fan of the Green New Deal that they passed, but that is one of the benefits of those packages and some of the other things that the Biden administration has done, is it is going to give a lot of boost to Mexico. And most of the illegal immigration doesn't come from Mexico.
It's Guatemala, Honduras.
And
by the way, I think El Salvador did a great freaking thing.
Guys, we got to wrap up the show. Go ahead and finish up with your last point, Harry.
I was just going to say El Salvador's president has also done a lot to end crime. So I think the future is actually bright for that front as well. I think illegal immigration is going to become a non-issue increasingly with automation and AI, and also the general quality of life here in Jakarta, for example, has improved a lot in the last 10 years that I've been here. So other parts of the global south are going through a similar renaissance.
And for me, just to address what we have in the show title, as far as everybody being, look, we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
We knew this was going to happen. 8 months later, when it's too late, when all the propaganda is set out, of course, Netanyahu knew this attack was going to happen. Of course, they were training 100 feet, 100 yards away from the walls. Of course, they knew that music festival, and they changed it last second, and they gave it permission to be there because they knew all that was going to be collateral. They needed all to build this up. 6 to 7 hours of reaction. But guess what happens? Now it's too late, right? And this is how intricate and how satanically smart Israel is, that once a lie comes out, once it's already too late, right? Because they've done too much damage. So, good luck, everybody trying to clear everything up now.
Yair Netanyahu says, so this is the Times of Israel. The Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's son, Yair, tore into the military on Monday, citing the High Court of Justice interim order instructing the state comptroller to suspend any aspects of his probe into the failings relating to October 7th that deal with the Israeli Defense Forces and Shin Bet. What are they trying to hide? If there was no treason, why are they so afraid for external independent parties to check what happened? The premier's son wrote on X. Now, this guy, he's not actually like a conscious person, like, conscientious objector. He knows that his dad is the one who received the information and he ignored it. He's just trying to say, oh, well, my dad, he's trying to say, like, my dad would have done something about it if he knew about it. So because the Israeli society is like, how come you didn't do anything about this, Netanyahu? And this is one of those guys who called on about the failings of the Hannibal Directive. For those who don't remember, the Hannibal Directive is the destruction of the entire land that could possibly be taken, or people that can be hostage, be taken as hostage. So he was upset about the Israeli Air Force not being able to do its job by destroying all the kibbutzes around Gaza. So he's not like a good person or anything. He's just trying to play games, but he knows what we all knew all along, and it's coming out that they knew without a shadow of a doubt. They knew what was happening. The Egyptians already had informed them. Their own intelligence operatives that are already embedded in Hamas told them. And they chose not to do anything about it because it gave them the license to do what they're doing now.
But no, on top of that, look, the investigations took place. There was no mass gang raping. There was no mass raping. There was no beheaded babies. All that. But guess what? It's too late now because all that, they already set up all that propaganda. The propaganda did its job. Now this truth is coming out. Like in a Muslim's realm, for a Muslim, it's like, one drop of Muslim blood is too sanctified for anything to happen. But the way the world is now, like, aha, see, we knew it. Yeah, but for us, it's like, dude, it's too late now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, Allah protect us and our children, men, and our families, and, raise all of those people as shuhada in Gaza. And Allah destroy the army of those people, of Netanyahu and all those people that are all together in cahoots. Allahumma ameen.
Ameen. Yeah, Eid Mubarak, everyone.
Eid Mubarak, guys. After all that, Eid Mubarak, guys. Yeah.
Hopefully, Shaykh Amr sacrifices one of his vices.
We're
all praying for him. He's going to do the sacrificing on behalf of all of us, so we don't have to. Just like it's a very Christian way of thinking about it. All right, guys, that's our show. Make sure you click on the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Throw a comment in the comment section below. We'll see you all next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Hey, real quickly.
I want their leader brought here. I want him brought to me. I want the revolution crushed.